Okay, and we are recording. Let me just share my screen. Okay, we have my little friend, the GoBot. Now, this is a very basic rig. Well, a very basic model, I should say. So the first thing to rigging anything is knowing where all your pivot points are on your geometry. And so what I'm first going to do is take a look through my model and at where the actual pivot points are. So I've already gone through this model and set up all my pivot points to be where the actual joint would be here. Now, the funny thing about this is it's not really going to matter a whole lot, simply because we're going to be using a rig for this. So what I'm going to do first is go into my orthographic mode. There we go. So now I can see everything. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm actually at the center point of my scene. So let me just freeze my background here. And it looks like, yes, as far as everything goes right here, you can see my cross section here on my default grid, and he's pretty much on the grid itself, or right in the middle of the grid itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to create a full body node, or a parent node, because the rest of the body needs to know what is actually controlling it. This is going to be the primary body controller. So what I need to do first is I need to pick a shape. Now in 3ds Max, there's a couple options for how you can do this. I'm going to show you the easiest way for me. And for this particular character. There are other ways to do it that are a little bit more complex, a little bit more involved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dial it back a little bit, and we're just going to start with the basic of the basic here. First thing, what do I actually want to use for my main body node? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here to my spline objects, because remember, my spline objects are non-renderable. So good thing is no matter what, that's never actually going to show up in my render. So I'm just going to start off with a rectangle, and we're going to start off right in the pelvis here. Pretty much every character, every bipedal character you're going to rig, you're going to start off with a primary node in the pelvis. And why do you think that is? If you just had to look at the character, why would I put this in his pelvis?
The center of gravity.
Almost center of mass. And that's what we're going for. We're trying to go for a center of mass here. So I'm just going to draw this out right in the middle here. Oh, where is it? Hello, there we go. I don't know, for some odd reason it didn't take over there, but that is okay. So I'm going to put this right back in the middle here. Actually, I'm going to center it properly. And now I'm just going to move this up to the pelvis itself. I'm going to put it right in the middle. There we go. And so now we have my primary pelvis node. And what this is going to be is the top parent for everything. So what I'm going to do is name this primary controller, so I can always find it. And now what I need to do is, because this is your primary controller, everything we put under this is going to move right along with it, just like our Newton's cradle. So we're going to go ahead, and now I'm going to create basically a bone structure for the leg itself. And I'm just going to use my lines here for right now, since we're doing just a simple rig. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to draw down to the actual knee joint right here. And I'm just going to hold shift to make this go straight. And now I have my leg node right here. And what can help is, as you're working, if you just select all of these objects right here, pretty much all the geometry, and press Alt X, I'm just going to make those invisible so I can actually see my rig. You can see my rig right in the middle there. So it also might help to freeze it, although I'm not gonna do that at the moment. So now I just want to make sure that this node here is, there we go, right in the middle where it needs to be. Go. All right. And so now I'm going to need one more of these because I need to get the lower leg right here. And so this is pretty easy to do. All I need to do is just click Shift and then drag it down to duplicate this object. And we're just going to kind of meet right in the middle here. There we go. All right. Now we have two straight lines, right? And so what do we do with these? Well, the first thing we need to do is tell these lines that you are going to pivot. And you are going to pivot according to a particular controller. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself a handle. And the handle is to control these bones that we're making so that we can easily move our objects. So the first thing I'm going to do when creating the handle is find exactly where I want this object to pivot. And so I'm going to start right here. And I'm going to draw out my circle. Why does it not work on here? Okay, I guess that's being a pain. Well, I'll have to draw it out here and put it in there since this one doesn't want to work. Yep. All right. Go. All right. So we can see that my circle is right there. And so now I'm just going to move this up to my actual leg here. And I'm just going to make this a little smaller. There we go. So now, ooh, not that. Ooh, I'm going to make sure to have plenty of steps here. And actually, I'm just going to scale it right down. There we go. However, now we don't want to put this inside of our mesh. Okay. Very important that we leave it outside, leave this outside of our mesh because this is our handle. We want it to be easily accessible. And so now what I need to do is take this line right here, or this bone, and I'm going to make this a child of this controller right here. So first off, I'm going to name my line. Just make sure to name everything properly. This line is going to be upper right leg. Go. So now we have the upper right leg and we have the upper right leg controller. In fact, we're going to get a little more technical with it, and we're going to be calling this the upper right leg rotation control. So now we know exactly what it is. Now we can take our line here, our bone, and we can make this a child of the upper right leg rotation control. So now when I select this circle right here and I rotate it, it's controlling the line under it. Now we work the magic in. So we're going to take this leg right here, and now this needs to be a child of this bone right here. So I'm simply going to take this geometry, and I've already named it left upper leg, and I think I named the other thing wrong, didn't I? I named it the right leg. Brilliant. All right, let me rename that real quick. Where did I put it? There we go. Upper left leg. Go. And then I just want to make sure that I name this correctly as well. There we go. And now the actual geometry itself is simply going to become a child of that upper left leg controller. So now I can indirectly control this leg right here. So I'm going to turn this visible. And then I'm just going to grab my controller itself. And now when I rotate my controller, the leg rotates right along with it. Now, you'll notice that this leg down here, of course, is not coming along with it, right? Well, I'm going to turn this transparent again. And so what I need to do is further control this leg down here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and create a circle, which is going to represent our kneecap. Let's see, can I create something over here yet? Nope. So we'll make it here. Slide this up. And I'm going to put this right about where I want the knee to bend. I'm going to rotate into place. And I'm just going to find a good spot for this. Keep it in line with everything else. And now, of course, I'm going to leave this slightly outside of his knee, so I still have control over this right here. And now, based on what I just did, what would I parent this to? What would this become a child of if we're going to follow the same process we just did? No one?
The lower leg, wouldn't it?
Right, this lower leg section right here. Well, not the lower leg, but actually we're going to parent this to the upper leg right here. So let me just make sure this thing is on point. Okay, looking good. So now we can take this, and this needs to become a child of the lower leg. Or wait, where is it? There we go. Did I name this? There we go. All right. So now this also becomes a child of that as well. There we go. And so to test this, grab my upper leg, or actually, sorry, my main controller, and I'm just going to go ahead and rotate it. Oh, that ain't working. Wait. Oh, yeah, it is. It's working just fine.
Yep.
There we go. And now, following this, I'm going to take the lower leg controller, and I'm going to attach this to the kneecap right here. So now we have the knee controller, and this is left knee controller. And then we have the lower leg. Oh. There we go. Now notice how we have an intermediary object. I'm not just taking the upper leg and attaching it to the lower leg. I'm taking the upper leg, I'm attaching a knee joint to it, and then I'm attaching this lower leg to the knee joint. So if I did this correctly, when I bend my knee joint, the lower leg should go right along with it. And there we go. So now we have the easy next step of simply taking the lower leg geometry, all of it here, and making it a child of the lower leg itself. So we're going to take this right here, and we're looking at lower leg. And we're going to put those both in the lower leg. So now if I grab the knee control yet again, and I do a rotate, and in fact, let's unhide this right here as we go. All right, so now all that's visible is just our two controllers here. I could take my knee joint, And now I can bend the knee, nice and easy. And I can use the main leg control node right here as well. Now, one problem we have right here is this leg is standing on its own. Pun not intended. So this leg has no control. Hold on a second, my camera's all screwed. There we go. So this leg is kind of floating in itself in space right here. And you can see on my hierarchy here, the left leg is its own object. Now, of course, what are we going to want to put this under if it's controlled by our robot? We're going to want to put this under the primary robot controller, right? So we're going to take this right here, and we're going to drag it right up under the primary controller. So now, whenever I grab this object, the leg will go right along with it. Now, within this hierarchy system, there is a couple more objects that we need to add to this. So, of course, one, now this being part of our primary node, this isn't going to do a lot of independent movement. So we can go ahead and just simply make this geometry a child of the primary controller. So grab this right here. I'm going to take the torso, and this is going to be a child of the primary controller. And so now when I adjust the primary controller, and I'm going to unhide these as I go too. So boom. And so now when I grab my primary box controller right here, I'm moving the entire body on its own. Now, we're going to start working our way up, because what we need right here is, first off, we're going to take a look at the geometry. So 1, 2, 3. So we have a 3-part body. And so we're going to need how many bones for this? 3, plain and simple, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create a couple lines. I'm going to hide that for a second, just so we can see what's what. All right, so from here, I'm going to create another line. Actually, you know, I'm going to create a line from here to here. Create a line from here to here. And then one more from here to here. Now, am I done? Hell no. Still have a neck right here. Go. And now we're just going to start kind of squaring these away to where they should be. So first thing I'm going to do is freeze all of this geometry here so I don't move it by mistake. That's one thing I don't want to do. All right, so I have the lower torso node. And I'm just going to go ahead and center it on the 2 axes right here, so it's in the center of the page. It's not going to be centered on the Z. Don't worry about centering it on the Z, just your X and Y. So we can take a look at where it is. Okay, so I'm just going to bring it into the body a tiny bit more here. And I'm going to actually rotate this a tiny bit. Go. So it's the first part of my spine. Now what I need to do is name that. Let's see, we'll call this lower torso. Yeah, lower torso. And because we already have our control node set up here, we can take our lower torso, drag it into our primary controller. And now I'm going to take the torso geometry and I'm going to make it a child of the lower torso, actually, we should call it lower torso controller. And so now I'm not directly controlling the geometry with my main node. So if all goes according to plan, I should be able to move my primary node here, as well as just this node in here. Now, of course, as with everything we've done thus far, we need a controller to control the actual rotation of this particular piece of his body. So I'm going to add another circle to this. However, with this circle, we're going to make this one just a tiny bit different. And so I'm going to duplicate this one. by simply, let's see here, I'm going to go to my rotate and press and hold shift, and I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. So now we've made ourselves kind of a little skeleton of a sphere. I'm going to take both of these and move it up to our guy. And I'm going to go ahead and center these just on the X and the Y and bring it up. And now I'm going to look at the side profile and just make sure I'm actually getting this at the center of this robot's pivot point. So I think right about there should do the trick. And then same deal here. Center, center, and then I'm just going to bring this down, align it up. There we go. However, with this one, I'm going to make this just a tiny bit bigger because I don't want that controller going right through all the geometry. I want to be able to see it. So there we go. And now we can take our rotation control here. And let's see here. This is going to drop down into the primary controller node. And then, of course, we need to make this and everything that's part of the lower torso control part of the lower torso rotation. Go. And actually, we're going to call this rotate front. So now when I actually grab this particular controller, I'm rotating around that pivot point. And then I can also, once I take this and bring it on down in here to primary control node, we're going to call this lower torso rotate. Left to right. And so now once we take this, we drop it in here. With our larger control, we can rotate this back and forth. Now, what is not rotating with everything else? The legs, right? So in order to have a successful rig, we have to make sure that all the proper objects are attached to it. So now I can take my leg controller and we figure out exactly where we need to put this. So do I need to put it here? No, I don't really need it right there. What I need is for our leg to rotate right along with the front back of, actually, you know what? Yeah, we just need the front back because we need the result of both of those controllers. So I'm going to drag this, I'm going to put it right in here along with the front back controller. There we go. And so now when I want to adjust the pivot here, the whole body goes along with it. And so if we want to make this whole body rotate, bend like that, and we can. And so now we keep building it upward. We need this segment right here. Follow the same process. Zero it out on the X and the Y. 0 and 0. Okay, and now we're just going to figure out on the Y exactly where we want it, which I think right here is perfectly fine. And now we're going to want to make that a child of this. Simply because anywhere we want this torso to move, this torso or this part of the spine is not going to move independently. So this needs to be a child of it. So I'm going to take this right here. Why is it on auto expand? Hang on. There we go. All right, so now we have the lower spine. Actually, you know what? We're naming everything torso. We'll just call this mid-torso. Now, what should I do? Now, I'm missing a step here. What am I missing between here and here? Think about the movement itself. Now remember, I don't want to use the center points of this line specifically. What I want to do is identify my own center point. So what I'm going to need here is I'm going to need an additional way to actually control this. So while I'm going to take this geometry here and make it a child of this particular object. So wait, let's say this right here. And this is going to be the mid-torso spine. So now this object is controlling the spine in the middle here. However, something needs to control this mid-torso spine in all the way it's actually going to rotate. So the thing I need to do next is do the same thing I just did right here. I'm going to have to create a small spline. So we create another circle. And I'm going to go ahead and move this up here. And I'll rotate this in by 90 degrees. Go. And of course, I'm going to center on my Y. Right. So now we have a way of controlling this piece of spine right here. See if I can kind of line this up a little bit better. There we go. All right. So now I have a way to control this. Now this is going to be my mid-torso. Rotate. Oh, if I spelled torso like a reasonable person. So we have the mid-torso rotate control. And now we're going to go ahead and take the mid-torso spine and stick it in there. So now we have full control over this particular part of the spine. So if I go to my rotate. Oh, sorry. All right. Thank you. So now I can take this and rotate it back and forth. However, again, we don't want this thing moving on its own, right? We want it moving along with everything else. So now I'm just going to take this mid-torso, and this needs to, of course, be attached to this lower control right here. And I can go right to it. So this needs to be a child of this object. So I'm going to take my mid-torso rotate, and I'm going to put it right here. And so now for testing it real quick, as I rotate the entire body, this is going right along with it. And if I want to move this independently, this will move on its own as well. So now we continue on with the upper spine. Have my spine there. I'm going to center it on my X. And then we need what? What else do we need?
Handle.
Another handle. That is correct. So let's add another circle. By 90. There we go. And then, of course, center on the Y. Center the body. And, you know, we're going to make this one just a little smaller. Because we want this. In fact, we want this to move at right about the pivot point here. Go. Pretty much the end of the previous spline is where we're going to put the rotate for this. Now, we need this to be the parent object of this spine right here. So line 3, that's our, let's see, we're going to call this upper spine. And now we need to add this upper spine to the control for this mid-torso spine. So upper spine, you are not a child of mid-torso spine. And to test, all I need to do is just grab this and make sure they all rotate together. And they do. So all good. Just make sure. All right. And so now we can tell the actual geometry itself to go live with the upper spine. You can see how the upper spine is now controlling the chest itself. So now if I rotate this, well, oops, actually, we'll just go to the torso rotate. There we go. And so that all moves together along with it. Now, if I need a controller, of course, for this. Make sure I have my right controller here. Center on the body. Okay, so now I can bring my rotation control. Ah, what the hell is going on here? There. And this is going to be the upper spine. There we go. And so upper spine rotate control is also going to be a child of this mid-torso spine. And now we can take the entire upper spine and just dump it right into the upper spine rotation control. And so now we can test these by simply grabbing this, going a few nodes higher. And let's see, we're going to try this. Works good. Try this. Also works okay. Then we're going to try the lower. So it looks like everything is moving as it should. Now we do the same process for the arms and for the neck and head. It's a pretty straightforward process. It can get a little confusing, but remember that there's always going to be, and see, this is why I, hold on, let me make this all, there we go. This is why we have so many controllers here. So you can actually see the controllers outside of the body itself. So now, let's say I want to make this character kind of go into a jump position. I can take this, can grab some of the upper controllers here. Go. Go back here, set this back up to default. There we go. All right. So these controllers can get a little confusing. I totally understand that. One thing that you can do to keep track of your controllers, something that they used to do in this process, they don't do it so much anymore because controllers have gotten a lot easier to build. However, what we can do here is in splines, you'll notice that you have a text option right here. And so what I usually do on my rigs is I add text to the actual rig itself. And I don't know why I can't add anything this one. So boom. Now the text is, of course, going to come in massive. So I'm just going to shrink that down. Down more. Down more. There we go. So what I do is set myself some reminders here. Okay, again, because this is a spline, it's not going to show up in any kind of render. So it's perfect to write yourself little notes and reminders for nodes. So let's see, I'm going to rotate this as well. Okay. What happened here? There we go. Just make this smaller. Fit it right in here. So what is the name of this? This is the upper spine rotation control. And so that's what we're going to call this. Now, when in the Mac text, if you click on the text itself, you can put whatever you want it to say right here. So boom, upper spine rotation control. Let's do that. And we'll make it much smaller. And then we're just going to take that object and make it a child of the upper, what was it? Upper torso rotation control. So there we go. And so now, whenever we grab this object, oops, is it in there? Oh, never mind. Children. Okay, there we go. So now, whenever we select this object, it'll light up along with it. At least it should, but it's not. There. But you'll also be able to see it rotate as it goes as well. And so you kind of always know where your stuff is. Now, this is a very old school method of rigging. This is the foundations of rigging. But this is what's most important, to understand how hierarchy builds on itself. How rigging one thing, setting it to be the control, and then building off of that object, that's what's most important to know how to do. Now, it's important to keep following this throughout the entire robot, setting head nodes up here to control the head, and then just making sure that everything is building off of itself. Now, when you have a finished model, especially a successful finished model, you should see nothing but the primary controller. And when you grab that primary controller, you should be able to move your entire character, rotate your character however it's going to go, and then rotate and move any of the parts inside it. Just like that. All right. So like I said, I'm not going to go through and rig the entire thing, and I'm hoping you guys kind of get the point here. So let's see here. Go ahead and stop sharing now and press stop in the recording.